There's a story that happened almost 1,000 years ago. But here's the thing. You're living inside of it. In fact, you're probably speaking it right now without even realizing. Take a word like justice. It's a huge, powerful idea, right? We hear it all the time. Or how about government? Yep, another one you hear every single day, shaping the world we live in. And let's do one more. Parliament, the very heart of how the country is run. So what do justice, government, and parliament all have in common? Well, they all crash-landed in England with William the Conqueror back in 1066. They are Norman French words. You see, the Normans didn't just conquer England, they completely rebuilt it. And the proof? It's right there in the words we all use. You are speaking Norman English every day. So just how deep did these changes go? Well, we're going to look at 4 huge areas. First, the language revolution that literally created the English we speak today. Then, the kingdom of castles they stamped all over the country. We'll look at how they rebuilt England's rules and laws. And finally, we'll weigh up their brilliant but also brutal legacy. Let's kick off with language, because it's the most immediate Norman legacy, and it's something that affects every single one of us. Before 1066, people in England spoke Old English. But after the conquest, the new bosses, well, they spoke Norman French. And for about 200 years, those two languages just lived side by side, mixing and merging. And the result of that collision was modern English. The scale of the change is just, well, it's staggering. Roughly 30% of all the words we use in English today have Norman French roots. Think about that. Nearly a third of your vocabulary. And this is just brilliant. It shows you exactly how it works. On the left, you've got the original Anglo-Saxon words. They're short, direct, kind of earthy. House, love, eat. But on the right, you've got the Norman French words for the same ideas. Mansion, adore, dine. See how they feel a bit more formal, a little more fancy? Here's the best way to remember it. The Saxon word is what you say to your mates. The Norman word is what you write in an essay. This little table tells you the whole story of the feudal system. The Saxon farmers, the ones out in the fields looking after the animals, they used the Saxon words, cow, pig, sheep. But the Norman lords, the ones sitting at the big tables being served the meat, they used the French words, beef, pork, mutton. The entire power dynamic of the country is written right there, on your dinner plate. But here's the crucial point, and it's pretty sobering when you think about it. For nearly 300 years, the people of England were governed in a language that most of them didn't even speak. Just imagine that. Every law, every official document, all of it was in Norman French or Latin. It wasn't until 1362 that English finally made its official comeback. So the Normans completely changed the sound of England, but they also changed the skyline. Before 1066, the Saxons mostly built with wood. William the Conqueror, though, he knew he needed to control his new kingdom, and he was going to do it with stone. 500. Just think about that number. In only the first 20 years after the conquest, the Normans built around 500 castles. That is a new castle popping up somewhere in England every 2 weeks. It was a building project on a scale the country had never, ever seen before, and it was all about one thing: total control. And what's so incredible is that you can still see this power written in stone today. The Tower of London started way back in 1078. Windsor Castle begun around 1070, and it's still a royal home. And it wasn't just castles. They tore down almost every major Saxon church and rebuilt them as these enormous, awe-inspiring Romanesque cathedrals, like the magnificent Durham Cathedral. These aren't ruins. They are living, breathing Norman buildings, a direct link stretching back across 950 years. Okay, so they changed the language and the landscape, but the Normans went even deeper. They got their hands on the very systems that ran the country, and they rebuilt everything: the law, the church, and the government. Before the Normans, justice was kind of a local thing. You had this patchwork of different Saxon courts all over the place. William changed all that. He created royal courts that worked across the entire country, pulling all the power over justice under the king. This was a massive shift. Power was draining away from local lords and flowing right into the hands of one single national ruler. And the legacy of that one decision is, well, it's extraordinary. This system of royal courts became the foundation for English common law. That's the legal system still used in England today. But get this, It was exported all across the globe, to America, Canada, Australia, and so many other countries. A choice made by a Norman king nearly 1,000 years ago is still shaping how justice works worldwide. It's amazing. So, after all this change, all this rebuilding, what are we left with? What's the final verdict on the Normans? Well, it's complicated, because this is a story with two very, very different sides. On the one hand, you have this incredible list of achievements, a landscape that is still defined by their majestic castles and cathedrals, the very foundations of a legal system that shaped the world, an amazingly rich and flexible language born from that fusion of Saxon and French, and a brand new, powerful connection to the rest of Europe. But we should not romanticize it, not for a second. This all came at an enormous cost. The land was ripped away from its Saxon owners. The English language was pushed down and suppressed for centuries. The entire ruling class was kicked out and replaced. And you had horrific events like the harrying of the North, where tens of thousands of people were killed. The Domesday Book wasn't just a survey. It was an accounting of a conquered people. And that, right there, is the heart of the Norman legacy. It was brilliant and brutal in equal measure. The England of the year 1200 was almost unrecognizable from the England of 1066, an entirely new country forged in both incredible creation and terrible violence. The Normans didn't just conquer England, they created medieval England. Okay, time for a couple of facts that I think are genuinely surprising. First up, this number, 37 million. What on earth could that be? Any ideas? It's rabbits. Believe it or not, before 1066, there were no rabbits in Britain. Zero. The Normans brought them over as a kind of luxury food source, keeping them in special enclosures. Of course, they escaped. And today, there are about 37 million rabbits hopping around. Every single one of them is a fluffy, long-eared Norman legacy. So next time you see one, you can blame William the Conqueror. And for our second fact, let's go back to that big word from the start, Parliament. It comes from the old French verb parler, which simply means to speak. A parliament, literally, is a speaking, a place for a good chat. So the Norman conquest not only created the world that led to Parliament, it gave the place its name. British democracy actually speaks Norman French, whether it realizes it or not. All right, let's see what you've remembered. Time for a quick knowledge check. Question 1. Approximately what percentage of modern English vocabulary has Norman French roots? Is it A, about 5%, B, about 15%, C, approximately 30%, or D, over 50%? The correct answer is C. It's approximately 30%. A huge chunk of our words come from the Normans. Question 2. How many castles did the Normans build in England in roughly the first 20 years after 1066? Was it A, about 50, B, about 100, C, approximately 500, or D, over 1,000? The answer is C. They built an absolutely astonishing 500 castles in just 2 decades. Question 3. When did English make its comeback as the official language of government in England? Was it A, 1100, B, 1215, C, 1362, or D, 1485? The correct answer is C. It took nearly 300 years, all the way until 1362. Question 4. What's the link between the Norman conquest and English common law? A, they abolished all English laws. B, their new centralized royal courts became its foundation. C, they imported French law. Or D, common law already existed before 1066. The answer is B. Their new system of centralized royal courts became the foundation for English common law. And our final question. Which of these phrases best sums up the overall legacy of the Norman conquest for England? Was it A, entirely negative, B, entirely positive, C, brilliant and brutal in equal measure, or D, insignificant? The correct answer has to be C. The legacy was deeply complex, filled with incredible achievements that were built on violence and conquest. Next time, we're sticking with the Middle Ages to ask a big question. Medieval kings and power. How much did they actually control? Well, it was more than you might think, but less than they wanted. Find out next time.